What's up, guys? My name is Jose Vasquez. I'm going to be talking about a little bit over air brakes and hydraulic brakes. I'm just going to be comparing both of them, and I'm going to be talking about the similarities, see what's more efficient, because there's a lot of controversy between um, if air brakes or hydraulic brakes are better, depending. Um, in my personal experience, coming into Stake Tech, I was more familiar with hydraulic brakes due to passenger vehicles. Usually all of them take. Well, I've never worked or I never heard of any passenger vehicle having air brakes. I know they have drum brakes, but it's not air driven or powered by air. And then coming into State Tech, I really didn't know anything about drum air brake or air brakes. But over the past internships and then air brakes class and just overall my experience here, I've gained a lot of knowledge about that. So today I'm going to be breaking down a little bit as far as the air disc brakes and the air drum brakes on the air brake side. Then later on we're going to be talking about a little bit over the air. I'm going to be talking about the hydraulic brake system. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a little bit over the drum brakes, the air drum brakes. So right now, right here I have a diagram listing the components of what is what. So over here I have the brake drum, which is the outside, and then I have the brake shoe. This is where it makes contact with the brake drum. And then I have the axle shaft, which is right here. And then I have the return spring, which holds the brake shoes together. There's always a little on the other side, on the inside. You can't see it, but there's always another one over here. Let's see. And then we have the brake cam, which basically this you can rotate in order to expand the brake shoes. And then right here we have the adjusting nut and then the slack adjuster. You can use that to back off the brakes to take off the drum. Then my personal experience when dealing with air drum brakes, pretty simple. You just basically, like I said before, you just back off the brakes with the adjusting nut and the slack adjuster. It's basically two tools that you need, just like a little fork you put inside, and then you start adjusting it, backing off the brakes. And then as soon as you start backing off the brakes, these brake shoes will start getting smaller and smaller. And then you'll be easy. It's sometimes not that easy to take the brake drums off, but you just gotta hit it with a little bit of power and it'll come off. And then right here we have the diagram of the air disc brakes, which is I remember talking about it in class. Mr. Massey would talk about it, and they said it would come and go. It was kind of like a come and go thing. And then he said like 40 years ago, 20 years ago, they tried it, but it always went away. So that's what I a little bit remember from that class. But I know now in modern technology, the newer trucks, I've seen personally, I've seen new trucks on the lot that need to get serviced, get new brakes with the air disc brakes. So newer vehicles are coming out more with the air disc brakes. So right here we have the air brake chamber, and then we have the spring right here that basically exerts the air, and then there's usually a piston right here. This is where the piston is at, and it compresses on the brake pads. We have the guide pin right here, and then we have the housing over here. It basically sustains the whole thing. When changing air disc brakes, usually it's not the same thing as changing a regular disc brake on the hydraulic, like a passenger vehicle. Usually you always have to take the guide pins out, both of the guide pins out, and then you have to lube it. That's another thing. You don't have to lube air disc brakes. You don't have to lube that. But usually on the air disc brakes, you have to take out the pins, take the copper bracket off in order to get off the pads off of it. But in this case, all you have to do is take this thing off right here, and then back it off. There's an adjusting screw right here it's pointing at, and the back, you just back it off. Same thing, kind of similar to the air drum brakes. You just back it off, and then as you back it off, you will start to see the piston go back, and you will start to see enough room in order to get the brake pads off. And then pretty simple to do that. And then you just take it out, and then you put the new ones in. And when you put the new ones in, same thing with the adjuster. You tighten it back up. But if you tighten it too much, the nut will break because it only takes a certain amount of torque. You don't want it to do it too tight, so that's why it breaks if you do it too tight. Let's see. Yeah, that's basically it. Brake pad, air disc brakes. Yeah. Let me move on to the second slide. Right here, I have a diagram on the air. This basically it goes to both air disc brakes and air brake drums, but right here I only have a diagram over the brake drums. So right here, basically, this is where your brake pedal is gonna be, and then right here is where it's gonna go. When you press on the pedal, the air is gonna go out here to the diaphragm, and then to here to the brake drums, to the S cam. You can see the S cam right there, and basically when you press that, you see the brake shoes, they expand, and then as the wheel is rotating, you see the vehicle slowing down as you brake. When it's pressing on the brake pedal, it's gonna expand and hit the brake drums. And then over here we have basically the back axle, the rear axle. Same thing, diaphragm, and then the S cams in the back. Same theory. Let's see, right, like I said, S cam, and then it's gonna do the same job as in the front. Then I have another line coming out. This is the air reservoir. You have on the dash, it tells you how much PSI on the reservoir that you have. And then we have right here we have the air compressor and the governor, which are engine driven. And then so one thing about air, why I think it's a little bit better and more efficient, is that it's more, you're never gonna run out of air basically. If you were to get a leak, of course you are, but it's not gonna be as bad as a hydraulic, like a brake fluid leak if it was hydraulic. Because you'll be able to tell on the dash. It'll tell you how much PSI it'll be going down. So usually at 60 PSI, when you're at 60 PSI and this keeps going lower, that's when the system tells you you need to stop. And basically at 30 PSI, I believe, that's when the parking brake sets itself in order to stop the vehicle. But yeah, this is the governor, and then the compressor. Like I said, it's driven by the engine. Then right here I have another diagram. The air compressor, same thing as over here, the air dryer. So right here I was in the diagram. In this diagram, there's the brake chambers, just like in this one. Well, this one's not saying the brake chambers, but right here there's another diagram where the brake chambers are in the back and the front. Of course, if it has air brakes, it's gonna have an air dryer. It's basically like a filter, like any other filter, oil filter, fuel filter, but it's basically just a filter for the air. And then we have the safety valve and the check valve for both our reservoirs right here. Let's see. Right here, there's another diagram on the truck. Let's say it was on a LT, you could say. You can see a diagram of how it's illustrated and see how everything's set up. Usually your reservoir is going to be on the side or each other side. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's just like it says here, the air brake system principle and how it works. See. So right here, I was in the diagram. In this diagram, there's the brake chambers, just like in this one. Well, this one's not saying the brake chambers, but right here, there's another diagram where the brake chambers are in the back and the front. Of course, if it has air brakes, it's gonna have an air dryer. It's basically like a filter, like any other filter, oil filter, fuel filter, but it's basically just a filter for the air. And then we have the safety valve and the check valve for both our reservoirs right here. Let's see. Right here, there's another diagram on the truck. Let's say it was on a LT, you could say. You can see a diagram of how it's illustrated and see how everything's set up. Usually your reservoir is going to be on the side or each other side. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's just like it says here, the air brake system principle and how it works. And then right here, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the pros and cons of air brakes, as far as which is better, because there's a lot of controversy if hydraulic brakes are better or air brakes are better. In my personal opinion, it just depends. If you're hauling a heavy load, I think the best idea would be air brakes, definitely. But on a passenger vehicle, I mean, there's not much to risk on a passenger vehicle. There's not heavy loads, anything like that. It's just a regular vehicle going down the road. But on passenger vehicles, hydraulic brakes is pretty standard. Um, and then air brakes, right here, I put some pros and cons a little bit. So some pros about the air brakes is air won't run out as easy as if it was a hydraulic. Um, it says if you wanted to connect the trailer to a tractor to a trailer, you would want to. It would be a lot easier to connect with air lines than hydraulic, because if you were to connect hydraulic brake lines, it would probably be a lot of mess. But with air brakes, with airlines, you could just swap it, put it all together like new. And when you put lines like that together, like tractor and trailers, all you have to do is connect the glad hands, and then you should be ready to go. No biggie. And then another one is at high altitudes, air brakes do tend to fail, or have unusual changes. So basically, what it's saying there is hydraulic fluid or hydraulic brake fluid, like brake fluid. Basically, if the vehicle has brake fluid, the viscosity is gonna change because the altitudes is going higher, so it's gonna change viscosity. Now, if you were to have air brakes and you're going up a high altitude place, it wouldn't really matter because it's air. You have air in the system, and it's constantly driven by the engine with the air compressor and the air governor, which regulates all the air and everything. And then air can be compressed, as many of you guys know. Liquid cannot be compressed. And then basically something else. It has more simpler components to replace and to know about. It's a lot more simpler. And then the feedback, that's another big thing. The feedback, when you press on the brake pedal, it's more accurate to all the brake chambers. And then right here, I listed a little bit of the cons. The cons is, since it is an air system, it does have to have like a filter, like I talked about before, which is more components means more money, and it means you have to do maintenance on it more. And then when you press on like I said right here, it says right here, when you press on the pedal, it's a longer delay. But as many of you guys know, there is a relay valve, I believe that's what it's called, that makes it a little bit more quicker than it should. If not, there would be a lot more. The feedback would be a lot more slower. And then, like it says right here as well, sometimes when there's something wrong, there's no feedback or little feedback at all. But yeah, that's basically it about the pros and cons. And like I said, I'm more if you're gonna have a vehicle, passenger vehicle, hydraulic brakes should be fine. But if you're hauling stuff or on the bigger vehicle, you definitely wanna have air brakes equipped with it, either being disc brakes or drum brakes. And I also know a little bit. I was doing a little bit of investigation on this website. It said it's a lot more faster to change air disc brakes. And I saw a video where it says you can change four air disc brake pads in the same amount of time, as a quarter of a time as much as a brake shoe job. So basically, you could have four disc brakes done already, 4 disc brake jobs done, basically the whole vehicle done, while somebody else is still working on one brake drum. So that's another thing. Yeah.